when it's just the two of us. I think we've been talking about the great shutdown since the pandemic had started, and now we've been doing like other types of broadcast, and so we're back for another round of who knows what.
Yeah.
So what's on your mind?
Well, I like this doing it live. It's more dynamic, and I like hearing from other people while we're doing it. I certainly liked just us talking and putting up later. Let's see, the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, we were talking before about how much more, I can't say normal, but that it's, we've gotten used to it. Yeah, I guess the last thing I was saying before we started recording was how if someone asked me in December 2019, if someone said, here's what's going to happen in the following 12 months, how much would you have believed how much of what happened would you believe would happen?
I
think like a third.
Right. It's it's surreal.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of people are like, oh, 2020, what a crazy year. I suspect 2021 is going to make 2020 look tame. But
oh my God. I hope not. I mean,
you could see it happening, right? I mean, no one predicted the pandemic.
No.
Or, I mean, sorry, people have been predicting a pandemic of some sort, but no one predicted like when and how.
Right. Well, I hope that 2021 is a better year. It all depends. I think it depends on who's in the White House, and hopefully it'll be Donald Trump, but we'll see. Had to throw that in. We will see. But this has been a year like no other year. People being locked in, and such is the case when people are locked in, of course. People have sex, and when people have sex, people make babies. And when people make babies, babies are born or they are unfortunately aborted. What is your take on that? You know, we've never discussed abortion. I look back at my high school years and when I was in college, and it was one of the term papers a lot of teachers and instructors don't write anything about abortion, but and I don't want to hear it again. But here it is, 2020, almost 2021, and we're still talking about abortions. Who has the right? Is it a woman's right, as they say? I can control my body. You can't tell me what to do. Or is it life? When does life begin? When does it end? What is your take on it, Josh?
Yeah, that's a perennially challenging topic to talk about. It's like almost like saying, if you talk about it, like you're risking your future political career. I mean, like almost 50 years old. I don't know if that's my direction, but you know, I haven't thought of, I've almost not talked about this to anyone, let alone on live. Because to me, it seems there's a fundamental question that's the starting point of when do you believe two separate half cells, a sperm and an egg, when, okay, they combine at some point. Is that a human life at that point? Is that an independent human life? Or, and I think most people agree, once it's born, that's a human life. So when does it begin? And as best I can tell, I think a lot of people would like to answer this with, on the one hand, religion, on the other hand, science. And I believe that each group finds definitive answers. Well, a lot of people, there's probably a lot of people that don't feel strongly about it either way. But of the people who feel strongly about it, it seems like the people who feel strongly about it, the decisive answer is in religion, or the decisive answer is within science. And in maybe it's as I've gotten older, it seems to me that there are some questions that no matter how decisive it looks to one group, the other group is simply not going to find it. They are not swayed by that way of looking at things, and vice versa. And to me, the point of, okay, so how do people live together if one person says this is murder and one person says this is freedom? It's pretty hard to reconcile that. And I believe that
when you say, go ahead.
Well, if people who believe one and the other are going to live together, I mean, most people agree on what murder is. If it's two adults, I guess there could be fine lines if there's self-defense involved, or if there's, is it going to be murder or manslaughter? If there's going to be, what led to it. But generally we agree on laws that we all agree by, that we, a system of justice and so forth. And to me, democracy is how people can have have different views and still live together. And you could say, well, let one group live in one place and one group live in another place and just have separate laws for the different groups. But there's so many different places where some people might agree and two people might disagree in this area and agree in another area. And if you split the group apart, it's not obvious that if you split along where you define a human life begins, let's say you could cleanly split all populations by that and have one country where people live under one definition, and another country where people live under another definition. They're still going to split on other things.
Mm-hmm.
To me,
but when you're looking at life in itself, like you said, there's always like, when does life, and I started off by saying, when does life begin? As it's just a cell, and when does it end? And it has the right to make that decision. And yes, for some it is a very complicated question. To me, it's straightforward, the way I look at it. And you're aborting a baby. And the excuse given that this is my body and I can do whatever I want to do. Well, when you start off saying that, it's my body and I can do whatever I want to do, that puts you in the category of just being just downright selfish. It's my body. I can do this. I can do that. And then once you have the kid, okay, I now want to sue the baby's dad for child support. And I want to do this and I want to do that. But when it was inside of you, it was you could make all those decisions. So it begs the question, like, are you just using this as a pawn? Are you being serious? Are you even taking the matter seriously? I look in the Black community especially, and we only make up 13% of the population. And we have been in this country for centuries. Why hasn't that number grown? I mean, has anyone stopped to think, why hasn't that number grown? And then when you go to Black neighborhoods, no one still 13%. Is it possible? It's so when I was in
Not sure if you can hear me. I hope the connection gets better. There we
Josh,
are. Okay, cool. I think I'm back now. So last I heard you were saying that why has the number not changed? But the numbers, right. the number of people has increased. The percentage hasn't changed. I think, if I understand you right.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because when I look at it, well, if the percentages haven't changed, the number of people.
Well, if the whole population is increasing, and say there's 100 people of which 13 are Black, and then later there's 200 people of which 26 are Black, still 13%, but the number of people has increased. So I presume that I have not looked at the demographics, but I presume the percentages are staying roughly the same. Well, I'm sure they're going down because the non-Black, non-whites are probably increasing.
But what did you think that if Blacks have been in the country for centuries, and still that percentage, it should be at, I would say, even like at 25%. But it hasn't gotten, I mean, it's like a slow growth, it seems. I think at one point it was 10%, now it's 13. There's something wrong here with this picture.
Well, I'm not clear if we think of it in terms of a pie chart.
Yep.
Would you expect the size of the pie of that slice to increase, decrease, or stay the same?
Increase.
Increase. So to what? To 50% or 100%?
Well, given the fact that blacks have been here for centuries, and looking at other minorities that are here, whose population has increased, I would think that overall our numbers would have gotten larger than percent of the population. That's not to say that it's because of abortion the reason why the population hasn't grown, but is it because of abortion? I mean, there are other factors to take into consideration, other deaths, other ailments, but it's just startling that that number has not increased. And some will say it's because of abortion. And I'm linking it to abortion because we're talking about abortion today. I haven't done any scientific study on it either, but it's startling. I'm baffled by it.
I guess I'm not. I would think that as the United States becomes, I believe it's becoming more pluralistic, more racial groups, more different representation from lots of different parts of the world. So I would expect eventually the United States would roughly have the same demographics as the world. Maybe not exactly, but I would expect that. I mean, I feel like we allow more people in our country than anyone and than any other country in the world.
True.
And that would tell me that whatever the population of the world, I'd figure we'd roughly approximate that eventually. I don't know how long that would take.
And why do we allow so many people in our country than other people?
Yeah, immigration. There's a big topic. That's a topic that I feel like people go ballistic over. And and I don't think people. I think if there's any topic that I think people could reasonably, rationally talk about, that would be one. But I don't see it happening. And
how could they reasonably talk about it? What do you say?
Well,
you seem to be a rather even-minded person. What do you say?
Well, I come at it from a different perspective than most people do. I think that because for me, it's an environmental issue that I think most people in this country want the GDP to grow, and therefore they want the population to grow. But we are having fewer children, and in most countries they have this so-called demographic transition where they, as countries become more wealthy, the birth rate drops. The cause and effect on that, I'm not exactly sure, but that seems to happen. And in the United States, if you look at just citizens' births, it's below replacement rate, I believe, but we want higher GDP, which means we want higher population, which means the business community really wants immigration.
Right.
Individuals might not say it, but we want to bring in more and more workers to keep the GDP growing. I believe that. So whatever people say about immigration, when you talk about rights and asylum and things like that, people say one thing, but when it comes to economics, they want more and more people here.
Right, and I'm okay with having more and more people here, but I want them here legally. I don't want them here coming here.
So there's a legal, non-legal divide as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I see a lot of people who are pro more immigration, and they want more immigration, but they don't want to change the law to make what they want legal.
Right.
And I think if you want the practices to change, but the laws don't reflect that, you got to work on the laws, it seems to me. But to promote illegal immigration or to not address that the practices, if someone wants one set of practices and the law does not, and it's not legal, and not to address the law, you got to work on that.
So are you saying that immigration good, but it has to be within the law?
I personally think that we should have lower immigration than we have now. We should not have illegal immigration.
Okay.
If people want immigration to happen that is currently illegal, I think that they should work on changing the law, but I don't see people doing that.
This is interesting. I mean, you and I, we've never discussed this. We started off talking about abortion, then we jumped to immigration, which is fine, because they say whatever else in the topic. So just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. This is my view on immigration, and then I'll circle back around to what I think you were. As far as immigration, I am okay with immigration. I'm okay with people coming here. I know that now, under Barack Obama's term, they changed it from illegal immigrants to undocumented workers. Okay, same thing, but they're illegal. If you go to another country, they're not going to call you an undocumented worker, undocumented person. They will say that you're there illegally. If you go to Mexico, they have some of the harshest laws. You go there, you're not supposed to be there. They will kick you out. If you come back, they will throw you in jail. Okay, the same with other countries. I remember when I was in Japan once, and I stumbled upon another guy who was an American, and he heard me speaking. He ran up to me. He's like, "Oh my God, an American!" And he just kept going on and on and on. And I'm like, "What's the big deal here?" He's like, "Oh, I'm here, and I'm not supposed to be here." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you get out?" "Oh, because I want to stay." I'm like, "Well, why don't you stay?" "Well, they won't let me. They make it very difficult." Why is it that in America, it's like the place that people want to go, but people feel as though we're just like an open door policy. Sit down, do whatever you want. We can really take care of our own. Yes, we're a very generous country. We don't want anyone out there suffering. But there is a process to come into the country, and you have to do it legally. There are so many people who have been here doing it right. They're waiting in lines for their number to come up and then say, "Hey, I'm here. I want to do the right thing. Here are my papers. You're now a citizen." Or then there are others who are sneaking across the borders. Yes, we need people to go and work the crops and whatnot, on workers' visas. But to come here and just to stay and then come across the borders, as we had a couple of summers ago, people just coming in caravans, and I think that those caravans were planned. It's just not fair. It's like everybody just can't come here, walk across and say, "Hey, I just want to come and I'm just going to sit down. Then I'm going to, go to the government for the government to take care of me." Yes, we might be one of the world's richest countries, but we can't take care of everybody. There is a process. And why people don't understand that process is beyond my realm of thinking. Well, no, it's not beyond my realm of thinking. I know why. I would like to think that I don't know why. But it's like we just can't take care of the world. And then there's a whole issue with DACA. Now, if you're born in America, according to the Constitution, you are an American. If you're just coming here just to have that kid, as what some of the Chinese were doing, they were paying people to come here to have a kid, so they could say this kid was born in America because our Constitution says that, then I can't go back because my kid is American. Who's going to take care of my kid? And then when you start looking at it, it's like, well, that's not exactly what the Constitution meant, that you just come, have a kid so you could claim asylum because my baby is an American now. No, you're abusing the Constitution. You're abusing the system. And what I would do, I would pack you up and send you back home. Now, there are kids who've been here. This is the only country that they know. I get it. I understand that. And it is very difficult, apparently, for our legislators to come up with a plan to say, okay, what are we going to do with this group, this population? The Democrats want them to stay here because they feel that it'll be more votes for us. Okay, Republicans are saying, no, you can't stay here. That's not fair because there are other people in line. Now, our president came up with a solution. He said, if you do this, let them stay. He had like these different parameters. They can stay for a certain period of time. Their parents can't vote. They'll have to be here for X amount of years. They can't commit any crimes. And then we will consider citizenship. I thought that was a pretty good idea, but a lot of people balked at it. So we're back to, just let them come and just camp out and, hey, have a party. It makes no sense because no other country does that. Now, I'm being facetious when I say have a party, although some people have been having a party because they know they can just come here and hide, but it's not fair. We are a country of laws, and I think the laws have to be obeyed. Go ahead, Josh.
So I come from a different standpoint.
Okay.
Actually, there's one thing that there are going to be asylum seekers in places where they're oppressed, and I think that's a very small number in terms of total population. Mm-hmm. And I think for us to represent a place where people can find freedom, and I think that's very important. But I think this is not a total numbers thing. So if someone's being Albert Einstein, right? Well, he's a super genius as well. But I mean, that made a lot of sense to allow someone like that in. But I want to separate that because that's, I think in terms of total numbers, that's not a whole lot of people.
What's not a whole lot of people?
People who are seeking asylum for, they're escaping an oppressive regime somewhere.
Right. No, I
Think a better
agree.
way of life.
Right. That's a small number, but some of the ones who have come here illegally are saying that. I think we lost you.
Me? I can hear you okay?
Okay. What were you saying right then?
So I want to separate that out, asylum seekers from everything else, because I think that even if that's a big number, I think it's small relative to the total number of people entering this country, legally or illegally. To me, here's my frame of reference, and I know it's going to be very different than yours. But, okay, because I'm coming at it from an environmental perspective. We used to have a lot of factories in this country. And a lot of these factories are closed here and they've opened up in other countries. And now we can claim accurately that we produce less pollution inside our borders than we used to before. But if the factory overseas has laxer regulations and is producing actually more pollution for the same amount of stuff, we haven't decreased the amount of pollution in the world. We've just moved it somewhere else. If we believe that our economy requires a growing population, and we have fewer children, but we simply bring in more from other places, we haven't decreased the growing population. We've just outsourced the population source. Kind of like we put factories overseas. Now we've kind of outsourced the population growth. In a weird way, not so weird when you think about it, that means that if we want people to come here, we want to make sure that our economy is much better than theirs. Otherwise, why would they come here?
Exactly.
And so it gives us a perverse incentive for other countries to have high population growth and low economy. But that's why people would want to come here. Someone commented in the comments of saying, which I thought was right on, was we want to support other places so that they're healthy, so that other countries, people want to stay there. Because then, well, I think I live in an abundance mindset that I believe that if people do well there, they'll trade with us and we'll do well here, and that rising tide will lift all boats.
Okay.
Yeah, here, the comment that says, we need to encourage other countries to stand up for themselves and build their own countries up. I think that that's the most important thing, is for other economies to do well so that people are happy there and don't feel that it's like to come here, they could take their time to come here. They don't feel desperate to come here. They don't feel compelled to come here. They have to get here. Now,
go ahead.
One big topic that comes up a lot is when you talk about population, people start talking about abortion, forced abortions, forced sterilizations, experiments in the past that are unconscionable and as far as I'm concerned, totally unacceptable and not at all what I'm talking about. But I have to address that some people will jump to that, but I'm not talking about population control like that. Just because I just want to address it. Some people are going to hear that. It's nothing related to what I'm talking about.
Go ahead, Josh.
So I think that our immigration policies made a lot of sense in the 1700s, in the 1800s, in the 1900s. But I think that at some point, every country has to reach a point and say, how do we revisit this? Do we stick with the same values forever? If so, what are the consequences of that? If not, when do we change and why and how? And I believe that we are at a point where it makes sense to change at least as a democracy, to speak at least about what has changed. So to me, living in a world, to me, it seems like we are living, it seems to me that, how do I put it? We have more than one global footprint. We're using more than one Earth's worth of resources globally. And that means that we have to reduce consumption. We have to reduce how much we're using. And population seems to be a major part of that. And immigration is a major part of that. So I would like to see lower immigration, but democratically reached, not arbitrarily chosen. So I have my values, but I know that other people have other values. And if we don't reach it through a fair democratic process, I only want to work through a fair democratic process.
Right, but what would you consider a fair democratic process? I think the process we have in place right now seems to be fair in that the law says, you can come, but you have to do it legally. Now, of course, it has been politicized. People say, okay, you want people of color to come here. You only want Europeans to come. And then when you look at it, it's like, no, but there are Europeans that are coming here also. But you're able to people of color, the poster child, in order to play the race card and say, oh, no, you don't want people of color coming here. And why is that? It's like, that has nothing to do with it. You know, we're not saying that. I think back in the Clinton years when the Haitians tried to come and he turned them back. Now, at the time, that was a big scandal, but it was soon buried. Now it seems as though it has developed with the Hispanics, you know, not wanting Hispanics to come here, Latinos to come here because they're coming across the border. Well, I mean, why, as someone said, you know, we need to help them get their countries together. And I think we had tried at one point. If our country, and this kind of a bit of a tangent, is such a racist country, why would these people want to come here? So I would say that whole thing that we're racist goes out the door. You know, it's a red herring.
We could be less racist than them.
Yeah, but why would you want to a place you know, so they say, that's going to mistreat you, you're going to do this, and you know you shouldn't be here? I wouldn't want to come. I would stay.
I think a lot of places could have it a lot worse.
As far as racism, they're not saying their countries are racist. They're saying that the regime, the government, they can't make a living. So if you can't make a living there, why would you come to a country that you say that is racist and you want people to make a living here either? So I think that there's a lot of you know, untruths that take place. And I think that I don't think, but I know that the laws should be honored. And like you said, it's on both sides, Democrat and Republicans. Democrats see this as a way of, you know, increasing their voter base. Whereas if you look back in the 90s, and as early as 2015, Barack Obama said that there's a process that illegal aliens should go through. But then once they did the numbers, I'm sorry, that was 2014, but then once they did the numbers in 2015 and realized, wait a minute, there's a huge voter base, we should let these people come in, they flipped the script. I mean, they were all standing on the floor saying, oh, we have too immigration, it's just too much. During the Bush years, Obama's first term, he's the Senate thing. And in 2015, they looked at the numbers and realized, wait, this might be a huge voters base for us. They decided to flip the script and say, no, let them come in. You look at Republicans, they're looking at, hey, this is work. We can get this cheap labor to come in. You know, so both sides have something to gain by allowing illegal aliens to come in. And we're merely window dressing it, as Obama did with the whole DACA thing, when he could have done something at that point in time, but he didn't. He just passed the buck. Okay, then fast forward to the Trump years, you know, what did the Republicans do then? You know, they could have also, or they should have, you know, looked at the laws and say, this is what we're going to do. But then you have people that are looking at their political future. Well, if I say this, if I do that, you know, my constituency might not like me and I might not be able to come back in. So it's become a politicized, as opposed to looking at it and saying, hey, this is the right thing to do because of the law. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, this is what I was saying about the, that we could have a rational discussion about it, but people aren't having a rational discussion about it, or they aren't saying what they feel. They aren't really, and they aren't discussing with others and addressing, okay, we disagree, but you know, how do we still come to agreement to live together? Mm-hmm. People lose their shit over this stuff. And they don't, it's not, I don't know if you addressed a lot of the things motivating people, and they're not really in the interest of the country. They're not in the interest of community. They're in the interest of their own selfish interests, which is, you know, that's a fair, people can act for whatever reason they want, but it's leading to not really discussion. The democratic process that I was talking about was the process to determine what rates from what countries to allow immigration from. Mm-hmm. Like not should something be legal or not, but what amounts should it be? I think that I would think that it should be lower than it is now. I think because if you have two places and one is doing very well and one is doing very poorly, and everyone streams from the poorly one into the one that's doing well, I think you're eventually gonna have two countries that are both not doing well. That's if you just let things happen. If you take action and the one that's doing well does some work to help the others. The Marshall Plan did this very successfully. I mean, I don't want to go make too far of a leap, but we put some work into helping these war-torn countries to do well, and that was very effective. I think you have to work to help the others do well, not just let it happen. If you just let it happen, I think the poor countries, people are going to go from there into the rich countries, and the rich countries will become poor. Right. And now no one wants to go anywhere.
Right. Well, that's what's happening.
And it's not just rich and poor. I mean, for me, it's more like ecologically green, living within their means versus not living within their means. If one country is overtaxing what its land and sea can provide, and they go to another place that's not overusing it, then eventually everyone will be overusing it.
Right.
So I think we need to help places, and including ourselves, live within our means.
And by doing that, what would we do?
Well, at some point, the population has to stable off somewhere. So I would think that we would do that below where there's enough to go around, where we can live per person in abundance, as opposed to, look, I don't eat meat, but I'm not opposed to people eating meat in some way. If you like to eat steak, I think you should get to eat steak and not have to eat crickets. But that's where we're getting to. And if you have, the more people you have, the more it's crickets and no steak.
Well, see, that's interesting that you would say that, because other people don't think that way. Their thing is,
no one does.
Right, if I'm not eating steak, you shouldn't eat steak. No, and let's just be clear here. I mean, you and I were on different sides of the spectrum. I am more toward the right, and I think that you're somewhere between the right and the left. You might be completely on the left. I don't know, but we're still able to share ideas and have these conversations without, pulling each other's head off, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that others can do the same thing.
But yeah, if you got me 10, 12, if you got me more than 10 years ago, I would have only been able to argue with you and show you how wrong you were. Not just you, but anyone I disagreed with. And that didn't get me very far. It didn't make my life work very well. It made me very unpersuasive. I was ineffective at my goals. And I'd much rather learn from people that I don't understand than to bludgeon them. Although I seem to be the minority of the people who are trying to get their voices out in this country. I think people get farther with bludgeons. But yeah, I mean, the way we met was by chance, and had that not happened that way, despite our living close to each other geographically, meeting might not have been so easy. But I think that so when we met, I was like, okay, finally I can hear from him like directly where he's coming from, not mediated by, I don't know what a reporter has, what biases a reporter has, what biases the media outlet that they're reporting through has. So for me, it's very interesting to learn from people. And I think that that to me is like, I have this vision of how I like politics to work, of like, I mean, there's many, but one that I really like is like the New England town hall, where, town meetings where people met each other face to face and they would learn from each other. And they knew that whatever happened, they were still going to live with each other for the rest of their lives. And so they wouldn't, if they got pissed off at each other, they had to they couldn't just never talk to the other person again. They would also have to communicate with that person and live with that person.
Right. Well, Josh, we're coming up on our cutoff time, but I just want to say one thing. I'm looking in the chat room, and one of the listeners goes by the name of @Piper_the cricket, that oh gosh, had political correctness is what got us into this mess. Oh yeah, okay. She said, or he, agreeing to disagree is a coward's way of thinking. You need to fight to win your argument. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, you and I, we don't agree on a lot of different things. And I'm adamant about my beliefs, and so are you. And I think that people should be. And I think that at some point, survival of the fittest, and it's not to say that you're going to kill someone, but your argument, you will prevail if you believe that, hey, this is the way things should go. But I don't necessarily think that if everyone is screaming at each other, no one is listening, and nothing's going to get done. Okay, so just want to put that out there that, Josh and I, we don't agree on a lot of things, but we agree to disagree, and we walk away and say, hey, this is the way it is, but I'm going to hold true to my beliefs. Hopefully he will come over to my side because I'm not coming over to his side. But, but I don't think we should go out the streets with guns blazing and, trying to prove a point that, well, no, at the end of the day, you're going to walk away with your belief. I'm going to walk away with mine. And what do you say, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's important. There's tiptoeing around the subject in the sense of not expressing yourself. I don't think that's a good idea. I think one should be able to say what one feels, but that I can express my interests. I can express where I'm coming from, what I feel. That doesn't mean I'm able to change the other person.
Right.
So nothing getting done is not the same thing as not understanding each other. I mean, to change another person is pretty tough. I mean, we all get in fights with our parents. I don't want to. I mean, there's some things that we're not necessarily we're not going to come to agreement on. I mean, a world in which everyone agrees, I just can't see that happening on everything. It's everyone, every pair of people will have something to disagree on. That's pluralism. That's democracy. That's America. And the challenge is to make that something that we can live with despite our differences.
Right.
I mean, if two people disagree, I think the model that one of them should win, that's to me immature. I mean, it reflects me as a younger person, and I got less done. I understood people less.
Mm-hmm. Josh, you finishing up your thought?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't see the answer. Pick a divisive topic: abortion, guns, immigration. These are, people disagree, and yet we want to live in the same country. Oh yeah, did you see my post? What makes America great?
I might have missed it. On Twitter?
Oh yeah, I did a post on no, my blog maybe a week ago. It was what makes America great. I looked at yeah, it's pretty simple to me. I think a lot of people say what makes America great is the people. But we share pretty much the same DNA as everyone else in the world. Some people say what makes America great is a constitution, but our constitution is copied pretty well in lots of different places. And to me, what makes this nation have such great opportunity and so forth is you look at it on a map. We've got two borders with oceans, big oceans. Impossible to invade this country. Very difficult. Canada to the north, Mexico to the south. They're friendly. They don't have nearly the resources that we do. We're virtually impenetrable. I mean, not totally so, but we have not had to defend our nation from invasion like virtually every other country on the planet has. And in the middle of all that, we have this tremendously fertile land. So we have a very safe territory with plenty of resources. Virtually no country can match us with that. If America split, if the United States split into two countries, however friendly they were, however much they were bonded in mutual self-defense, that split, I think, would ultimately be the end of what we now share commonly together. I think the unity of this country at a high is like at a mission level, above strategy, is the unity for us to retain one nation here. I think any other country that doesn't like us, what they want to do more than anything else, strategically speaking, would be to have us split up. And I think every American would lose in that situation. No matter how much we disagree with each other on these wedge issues, that unity, I think, is what an advantage. I don't see another country that has that kind of advantage that we do of having such an impenetrable defense and such abundant resources. Who matches that? It's like, it's just an amazing thing that we happen to be you and I happen to be living here. But if we split this country into two parts, the coast in the middle or the north and the south, now there's a wedge in for everybody else. And everyone else would want to split us up yet more. And I think that would be inevitable. So to me, unity, for us to, whatever our disagreements, to remain one country, that to me is the highest value. And that means respecting democracy. It means knowing that whatever disagreement I have with anyone, to whatever level, however much I find it offensive, however much I find it unacceptable, however much I can't stand it, I want to remain a citizen of the same nation with that person.
Right. Well, Josh,
I've never said this in public before. I've never said this in public before. It seems obvious to me. It's driven me for a long time, but I haven't really said it.
Interesting. Well, Josh, we are on our cutoff time. Thank you all for joining us for a small little cutaway into your Sunday evening. Just wanted to comment, just give random thoughts about abortion, sex, guns, and whatever else. And that's exactly what you got, whatever else. Tune in tonight at 10 p.m. I'll be with my regular panel. My co-host at Small Town Andrew will be on with at Trust God 7733 at Sean G927 and our special guest Jeff Dornick. Hope you can join us tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, be safe, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.